Get ready to find your recipe for a successful real estate lifestyle from America's top expert here at Greenlight REI with your host, Lance Edwards.
Hi, everyone. It's Lance Edwards, and welcome to our Greenlight REI podcast. This is the place where you get the strategies, you get the secrets on real estate investing, and you also get to understand and experience the real estate investing lifestyle. And today we've got a special guest. You know, the number one question people have in real estate investing is, where am I going to get the money? How am I going to do this if I don't have the personal resources? And so I'm really pleased that today we're going to be interviewing the private money authority. It's Mr. Jay Conner. And Jay, I want to welcome you. Thank you for being on today's podcast.
Absolutely, Lance. Thank you so much for having me on. And wow, when we get into this subject, I can't wait to share the information.
Well, Jay is the man. Jay and I have been friends, business colleagues for a number of years now. We hang out a lot. Matter of fact, my wife Kim and I are going to be seeing Jay and Carol Joy just in a few days this week, spending some time together. So it was really cool to be able to do this podcast. Now, Jay, no one knows Jay better than Jay Conner. So I want to ask you, take a little bit of time here and share with my listeners your background, your bio, and what brings us here today.
Sure, Lance. Well, I was actually raised, I'm here in Eastern North Carolina, Morehead City, North Carolina. Met Carol Joy out in Texas, which is where you are from there. But I was raised here, and I was actually, as far as business goes, I was raised in the mobile home business. The fancy word is manufactured housing, right? So I was blessed to, my father is Wallace J. Conner. And I don't know if you know this, Lance, you've probably heard me tell it, but my dad, he started in the late 50s selling mobile homes next to the only grocery store in the country. And that was my grandfather's grocery store. And so it got into like the mid 80s. My dad at that time had the largest manufactured housing company in the nation. And he and his company during his career sold over 100,000 homes to families. So I was raised, I was raised around affordable housing. Okay. But you know what? I knew if I ever got out of the manufactured housing business, I wanted to be a real estate investor for single family houses. And so the financing was really pulled quickly from the manufactured housing industry. Right now, there's less than 5% of financing available as it was, a few years ago. And so I remember my first deal, I said, well, I'm just going to do one deal. And so when I started 15 years ago, if you could fog a mirror, you could go to the local bank. I got an unsecured line of credit. They didn't even pull my credit. An unsecured line of credit for $250,000 for me to go play with. All right. And so I went and found my first deal. This was back, Lance, when realtors actually had homes magazines that they published every month. All right. And so they'd list the houses in there. So I read in a book somewhere that I needed to go find the ugliest, nastiest smelling house, foreclosure in MLS that I could find. I knew nothing at the time about finding FSBOs for sale by owners. So I found it. I got it under contract for $50,000. It was going to need about $50,000 in rehab. And so I was so excited. I know you remember your first apartment deal. I'm so excited about this deal. So I can't wait to take Carol Joy and show her this house that we're buying, that we're going to rehab and flip and make all this money. So I took her to the house. It wasn't when we're in such a small area, okay, my total target market's only 40,000 people. I only do 2 to 3 transactions a month, but they do average $67,000 per transaction in profit. But it's a small market. We're so small, Lance, we don't even have a war zone. We're not even big enough to have a war zone, right? I mean, we don't have a war zone, right? So but I do go to the less desirable area. All right. So I took Carol Joy down the nice side of Mayberry Loop Road instead of the bad side of Mayberry Loop Road because I just wanted to, paint the best picture I could. So we pull up into the driveway, Lance. Carol Joy won't even get out of the car. Won't even get out of the car. She's looking at the neighbor to the right. She's looking at the neighbor to the left. And she can tell, it's all, wait. She won't get out of the car. So then I said, well, to be sure, my dad, the manufactured housing king, he'll be excited for me, right? So I go get my dad. We pull into the driveway. He's not saying a word, not a word. He does get out of the car with me. We walk up to the house. I open the front door. Of course, you got to climb over stuff to get in the house, And he looks at me and he says, son, have you lost your mind? And so anyway, I got my first shut up check back 15 years ago. I bought it for 50. We put 50,000 in rehab. So what do you do when you got a house to sell? You list it with a realtor, right? Well, that's what I did. Listed it in January. Went 45 days with no showings. I said, I'm going to sell this thing myself. So I've read somewhere that if you put an ad in the paper that starts out with owner financing, your phone will ring. I had to cancel the ad after 2 issues. Our paper only comes out 3 times a week. I had so many people calling, I had to cancel it. I meet Earl at the house. I mean, this thing's beautiful and staged. I meet Earl at the house. He walks through. Put your seatbelt on for this, Lance. He walks through. He comes around the kitchen. He says, I'll write you an $18,000 non-refundable lease option deposit right now. I didn't know what a non-refundable lease option deposit was. But my daddy told me when somebody offers you money, take it and then figure it out. So I took his $18,000 non-refundable lease option deposit. Well, thank goodness, as I said, if you could fog a mirror, you could get financing. So we got Earl financing and got him cashed out. Well, fast forward 6 years. Those first 6 years, Lance, and we were cooking with gas. I had lines of credit at the bank and all this going on. And I called up my banker whose name was Steve. The operative word is Steve, was Steve. I call up Steve, and Lance, I'd had this conversation so many times with Steve. I told him I had 2 houses under contract, one I wanted to close, over $100,000 in profit and equity. Steve goes silent on the other end of the phone, cleared his throat. Now, this was in 2008. Clears his throat. And he says, I'm sorry, Jay, but the bank has collapsed your line of credit. I never heard of a line of credit being collapsed, but I knew it didn't sound good. I said, what do you mean, Steve? He said, well, we're just not loaning money out to real estate investors. My first thought was that sure would have been nice to know that before I tied up earnest money, on these houses. And my next thought, Lance, was, what am I going to do? So I called up my friend Jeff in Greensboro, North Carolina, told him the story, and he says, well, there's this thing called private money. I learned about private money quickly. I put it on steroids, Lance. In less than 90 days, I raised $2,150,000 in private money funding. And so my banker actually did me a favor, and by cutting me off, because I had to figure out a better way, I ended up with more money. And then I ended up with more money than I knew what to do with to get it deployed.
All right, hold there, Jay. Hold there. So hold on. So you got a lot going. So first of all, that was a good thing being cut off by the bank. It's a good thing for some of our clients too to sometimes be fired from their job to push them out in the real world. So let's go back a couple things. So first of all, you're saying private money. What is private money? Define private money for everyone listening.
Yeah, thank you. So private money simply is a private lender. A private lender is simply an individual, just like you, just like me, that loans their money from their investment capital or their retirement funds to us as the real estate investor. And so it's a simple one-on-one transaction with no middle person involved. There's no brokers or whatever. And so private money is just doing business with individuals.
All right, so let's address this, because this is where, this is the, as you know, the number one question people have about getting started in real estate. Where am I going to get the money? So, well, what if somebody says, okay, but I don't have very good credit. I can't do private money. How would you address that?
Yeah. So, and I hope on your show we have time to talk about the difference between hard money and private money, because a lot of times when a real estate investor hears private money, it's really hard money. But anyway, I've already forgot the question. What was the question again?
I don't have very good credit. Why would anybody loan to me?
Exactly. So yeah, what triggered my hard money statement was, hard money lenders either are going to pull you credit, right? The bank's going to pull you credit. Private lenders never pull your credit. In fact, your credit has got nothing to do with you getting the funding, because this is what we call a collateral-based loan. So when it's a collateral-based loan, your credit's got nothing to do with it. I mean, you can have a mid-score in the 400s and get just as much private money as I get.
So, okay, then certainly, I must have to sign for the guarantee this personal debt. What happens if something goes wrong?
Yeah, well, that's another big difference. When I was borrowing money from the banks, that last page of the promissory note in real small print, it said individual guarantor, right? Which means I was individually having to guarantee that loan, not only by the collateral or the house, but my personal and Carol Joy's personal assets. In the world of private money, there is no individual guarantor or guarantee.
So let's recap it, because some people's heads just spinning. So there's no credit check. There's no personal guarantee getting this money. Are there any limits on how much private money you can raise?
No limits at all. However, I was being interviewed on another podcast not too long ago. I won't call any names, but on the show, the host said, actually, Jay, there is a limit, $1 trillion. I said, well, I think that'll cover me, So let's just say for all practical purposes, there is no limit. And that's another huge benefit that I enjoy of using private money, is because when I was borrowing money from the banks, I had a limit, I mean, there was a cap. And even if you don't have lines of credit at the bank, if you're going to get a mortgage, then there's a limit to the number of mortgages you can get as a real estate investor.
So, okay, so then some people are listening right now. So they're asking the question, well, why would a private lender be interested in lending money on those terms?
Oh, my lands. So yes, well, there's some really good reasons. Number one, the private lender is going to be interested because, first of all, they're going to make higher rates of return than they can probably get anywhere else. So right now, to be specific, on most of my deals that I'm paying to my private lenders, right now, Carol Joy and I've got 47 different individual private lenders. Now, my lands, your viewers and listeners don't need 47 private lenders. I started out with one, and my first one gave me a pledge of $250,000. So anyway, high rates of return. So right now I'm paying on average 8%. Okay. Now, one thing that your viewers or your listeners may not know, it's shocking when I speak to my audiences, and that is, what is today's average rate of return in a 12-month certificate of deposit in the nation, And as of today, while we're doing this show, Lance, it's 0.49%. In fact, you can check me out. On every Thursday, the USA Today comes out with a report of average yields of return in the nation. On the front page of the money section in the lower left-hand column, 0.49%. Well, let's call it 0.5%. I come along and pay 8%. That's 16 times as much in returns.
So you're getting your private money far less than any hard money lender is going to provide you.
Oh, my lands. Right now, the national average on interest rates that hard money lenders charge is 14% versus 7 to 8%. So right at double. And that doesn't even include origination fees, which don't exist in the world of private money, and doesn't include extension fees, which, the average points right now on hard money, Lance, is 4 points, or 4% of the amount borrowed. And, most hard money loans are 6 months to 1 year. My loans I get from my private lenders are 2 years liquid capital, 5 years coming from retirement funds. Hard money lender is going to charge another 2 points or 2% to extend the note. Now we're up to 20% hard money in the first year. We're still at 7 to 8% first year, with the private money.
All right. So making the case for private money, no credit check, no personal guarantee, no limitation on the amount of fund, no points, lower interest rate than you'll get with hard money. So where do you find the private lenders? And by the way, I'm going to say a key thing. Jay, how many do you need to get started? How many private lenders do you need to get started? One. All right. One. So we got to find one person. So Jay, where do they find that one person?
Exactly. So there are 3 categories that I teach my students. There's 3 categories of where you find private lenders. All right. There's more than this. But here's the top 3. Number 1 is what I call your own warm market. Okay. People that you've got some kind of relationship with. It can be, in fact, at my live events, I actually have the students go over this exercise of identifying their top 100 private lenders in their warm market. They are amazed and shocked. I mean, sometimes I'll hear students say, my family and friends are broke. My family and friends ain't got no money, Well, they do. All right. Particularly when you get to the exercise of, making the list. I mean, my lands, who's doing your warm market? Cell phone contacts. Cell phone. How many contacts are in the cell phone? Facebook friends that are really your friends. I'm not talking about friends that you don't even know who they are, but your Facebook friends, your email list. Hey, look, if you're over 50 years old like me, you still send out Christmas cards, right? So your Christmas card list. So your warm market, that's one category. Second market are what I call existing private lenders. Now, I'm not talking hard money lenders again. I'm talking actual individuals like us. So even though the law changed about 3 years ago and we can openly solicit now, I don't openly solicit because I don't have to. And of course, openly soliciting means we can actually go on the TV, we can take out an ad in the paper, we can go on the radio, blah, 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 blah. But the problem or the challenge with openly soliciting to people that you don't have a relationship with is I'm held back and I can only borrow from accredited investors. Okay. So the question is, well, Jay, how do you contact these existing private lenders if you don't have a relationship? So I do it in a 2-step method. What I do is I've got 2 letters that are written, like we talked about before, Lance, the mailbox, the United States Postal Service actually is still open, right? We don't have the competition like we used to because everybody's going online. So I've got these 2 letters. One's called the Hot Buyer List Letter, and the other one's called the Real Estate Investor Letter. So these letters, in a nutshell, are written from the standpoint of wanting to establish a relationship with that private lender, but private money is nowhere in the letter. This letter is written to say, hey, I'm Jay. I tell them right up front, I found your contact information, and I'll paraphrase, in the public records. And I see you're probably interested in real estate investing, and it would be mutually beneficial, for us to meet. I pass on deals, maybe you pass on deals, etc. So where do we find these existing private lenders? I started out doing it the hard way, like most everything I do. I started out doing it the hard way. And so I hired my attorneys, real estate attorneys, paralegal, to search public records every month here in my local county and looking for individuals loaning money, with deeds of trust, mortgages to other individuals, not seller financed homes, but actual individuals loaning money out. It took time. And I only came up with like 1 or 2 in the first 90 days. So we got sophisticated. We developed this software called the Private Lender Data Feed, and my software people publish it every month. So myself, my students can go right to the laptop, type in any zip code in the nation, and in seconds, pull up these existing private lenders from all across the nation using any zip code search. And then in addition to that, the third category, so we got warm market, existing private lenders, and then we've got what I call the go to where the movers and shakers in your community or your area go. The Rotary Club, the Chamber of Commerce. Get involved in these civic organizations and be a servant, volunteer, etc. You know, the Rotary Club is always looking for presenters and programs and information. And so I've put together this real simple PowerPoint presentation that doesn't ask for private money. It educates people on what private money is. And then you get leads just automatically of people coming up to you and asking you questions. Sorry for the long answer.
Well, no, it's invaluable. It's invaluable because, and I think the main thing about it, Jay, is that it's within your network, your contact. I mean, if nothing else, your cell phone. And the key thing, you only need one to get started. So you've laid out, you've really cracked the code on finding private lenders. I'm gonna go back to something now. You talked about what you were doing before the bank shut down your lines of credit, and so then you had to go establish your private money system. So let everyone know, what does your business look like today? What kind of transactions are you doing? How many are you doing, to the extent you're willing to share? What kind of money you're making per transaction? What has private money allowed you to do?
Yeah, well, private money, I discovered very, very quickly, was able to scale and grow my business much faster than relying on the banks. I mean, for one thing, using private money, I'm able to close deals so much quicker than when I was relying on the banks and mortgage companies. I mean, in all of my offers, Lance, we make our offer that we can close in 7 days. Now, if I'm buying a bank-owned property, that's not going to happen in MLS. They can't move that fast, But that's a really, really important piece of the offer to a motivated for sale by owner, because when they are out of money, they are open to receiving cash very quickly. In fact, Lance, I get deals accepted regularly to where another real estate investor made an offer equal to my offer or maybe more. I got the deal because I was able to close so quickly. So, I'm not doing a high volume of deals. I mean, it's a business decision. I didn't have to decide this. I mean, but like in your world, in the small apartment world, your territory is the whole nation, right? I've just chosen in the world of single family houses, and I can branch out if I want to, but I've chosen to target right here. I could drive from my house and see any of my houses like within 15 minutes, And so I do maybe 3 transactions a month, but average profit in the last 12 months has been $67,000 per deal. And I'm not buying luxury homes to make those kind of dollars. Now, obviously, you can't make those kind of dollars unless you're buying them at like 30 to 40 cents on the after repair dollar, But that's the deal flow we're doing, and the kind of profits that we're making.
Wait a minute, Jay. I'm going to do some math here. Hold on.
Yeah, I think that comes out to something like 180,000 or something.
Yeah, 3 transactions a month times 67 is actually 200,000 a month. And there's 12 months in a year where I live. I don't know about there in North Carolina, but that's over $2 million, Jay.
That's it.
Well, I dare say that enough people, I'm sure everybody or most people on this podcast could probably get by on $200,000 a month when it involves none of their own cash, none of their own credit, no personal guarantee, no credit check, just put together the deals.
That's it. That's it.
Jay, this has been really phenomenal, and you are indeed the private money authority. And this as a matter of fact, the database you put together, I wasn't even aware of that. That's awesome. Where you've already found these existing private lenders for your clients.
Exactly.
One thing, Jay is, he's got some great further training, and he's offered to make some training available for free to our viewers and listeners. So Jay, if you would, tell them a little bit about what you've made available to our Greenlight REI listeners and how they can get access to your private money training.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I have, Lance, for your listeners is I have a free online class that's on demand, ready to go, watch and listen and take notes. It's called Where to Get the Money Now. All right. And so it dives really deep. We go over the 5 steps on how to get the money from saying hello to actually getting the money pledged from your warm market. We go over the 5 steps on locating the existing private lenders. And I know some people are not all that comfortable actually negotiating or talking, with the private lenders. So on this internet, on the online training, I actually go over how you can have an assistant. It's all scripted. Have an assistant actually doing the talking for you. And so you can put it on automatic. You don't have to raise the money yourself if you don't like that end of the business. And so the website, Lance, for your people is your website, www.apartmentwealthmachine.com / and then all in lowercase, my first name, Jay. Okay. So that's there waiting for them. And I'm glad to offer that up for your listeners.
Well, thank you, James. For everyone, it's apartmentwealthmachine.com / J, lowercase, Jay. We'll certainly put it in the show notes as well. Now, Jay, for people, this training, let's make it clear for everyone. How can they use private money? It's not limited to single family transactions, is it?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, they can use it, obviously, as you know, in the world of apartments. I've got some students that have gotten the private money actually to buy their own house. All right. Also, not only for flipping, you can use the private money for buy and hold if you wanted to be a landlord. The exit strategy on that is you want to hold that property. Well, obviously, you don't want to pay 7 to 8% if the local bank can give you a lower interest rate. So you're going to get that single family house or whatever it is seasoned. You got renters going in there and you're going to season it for maybe a couple of years. Then you go to the local bank, refinance it, cash out the private lender and deploy their money on another deal.
So, everyone, first of all, Jay is the private money authority. Check out his free training, because remember, this is the number one question people have is where we get the money. But you only need one private investor to get started. Jay's, shown us, told us how to do it here today. He's got some additional resources, and you can use it for, many of my people are interested in small apartments, but any aspect of real estate. You can use it for buying, for rehabbing, buying your own home. Jay just referenced the money is there. And as Jay points out, when you're only earning, the average CD return is 0.49%. Well, it doesn't take a Nobel Prize in economics for anybody to figure out we're probably not going to retire on 0.49%. So they are desperately looking for your deals and your transactions. Jay, this has been fantastic. I think, I want, first of all, thank you for the training. Thank you for opening up in the instruction on how everyone can get started using private money. Thank you for your sharing your wisdom and knowledge today.
Absolutely, Lance. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here. I respect you so much as to what you're doing in the small apartment niche and space. I mean, my lands, you've got thousands of students that you have now impacted their lives since you started your training. And as we mentioned, Carol Joy and I are looking forward to seeing you and Kim this week and hanging out with you all some. So thank you again. And my lands, let's do it again sometime on a different subject.
I want to bring you back, Jay. I want to bring you back. You got so much knowledge. So, Jay, that's been great for everyone. This is Lance Edwards with Greenlight REI podcast. This is where you learn about real estate investing and the real estate investing lifestyle. In this case, $200,000 per month profits. Till the next podcast, take care.
You've been listening to The Expert with Lance Edwards. Let us now blatantly and shamelessly bribe you toward creating your own real estate lifestyle by offering you a whole bunch of free stuff. Go to greenlightreinvesting.com and get you some free stuff and this session's show notes.